Call to order the Bedford Township Board meeting, July 17th, 2025, 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Phil, would you please lead us in prayer?
Let's pray. Father, we give you thanks that we live in a country and we live in a community where we can openly gather to discuss the business of the people of Bedford Township. I would pray that you would be with the board members tonight, that you would provide them with discernment and wisdom as they go about the business of Bedford Township for the protection of the residents of Bedford Township. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Next that we have is the approval of the agenda. I need to add 8I, and that's bringing back the traffic safety study. I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended. Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Mr. Springer votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye. Number 3, consent agenda. Agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file A, minutes from the June 3rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, general savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer for May 2025. 3C, balance sheet, revenue expense report for the period ending May 31st, 2025. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, take the roll.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Springer votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Next is presentations, Monroe County Sheriff Department update. Officer Joe.
Good evening. Joe Hammond with the Sheriff's Office. You have your stats in the packet for the evening. Nothing outside the normal in those. I'm sure, as you know, we've had a kind of a rough week on the county. So, but if you have any questions for the last month, we'd be happy to answer.
I just one question. The school resource officers that we partnered with in the three-way partnership, now that school's out, maybe it's a good time to revisit. You know, is their responsibility still that area, or are they now relocated to another part of the county or the township?
Yes, so my understanding with the agreement, because we had reduced the township numbers from 10 to 8, they come back out and are back as contract deputies for the summer, bolstering you back to your 10, so they'll be within the township. I will say, concealing one of their identities. One of them is on light duty because she'll be welcoming her first child here soon. So, but yes, so that's how that'll work. Is they'll come back and bolster your numbers back to your 10 that you had agreed to, and then we'll revisit our staffing levels in the fall, which fingers crossed now. So, okay.
Seeing none, we'll be moving on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have number 5, public comments. Comments limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items only. Please state which agenda item you will be speaking on. Please give your name and address, please.
Lamar Frederick, Lambertville. I'm here for 8H. I am wearing this shirt tonight, which says on it, Community Build Carr Park, 2003. I have another shirt at home that says Community Build White Park, 2002. Those were the construction of the playscapes. We're now in 2025. Thousands of kids have crawled all over those playscapes. Yeah, they've been repaired, they've been fixed, they've had maintenance, but they're still there, and they're still being used. I was there tonight. I'm wondering if pickleball is a fad. You show me one racquetball court today. Show me one squash court other than the one that is the Toledo Club that was built in the last century. Where's a handball court? None, because it is not current. Pickleball, I don't know how it's going to last. But will it last 20 years like the playscapes? I ain't going to be around here 20 years from now to find out, and most of us won't be. So the question becomes, are you going to invest $250,000 for maybe 200 people, maybe 100 people, when the playscapes were constructed for thousands of kids? The ARPA funds, you didn't spend much money at all on the parks. You built this building, put this stuff in this room. I don't know where the sidewalk program is, but it went by the wayside. So is this the kind of investment that you're going to support? Now, maybe it's one court, maybe two. Of course, the ones at Whiteford have been vandalized already. They're used from time to time. I go by there almost every day on my way to see my wife, and they're used quite a bit. So maybe 2 courts is what you need. You're not going to have the national pickleball final here. And so my view is revisit this whole project and determine whether or not it is a benefit to the community as a whole. And if not, then look at some other way to invest your money. But if you think this is going to be a program that attracts the whole community, no way. So your responsibility is to provide support, health, safety, and welfare to the community as a whole. The playscapes were built together by contributions from volunteers. 25, 30 people showed up to help build those playscapes. Well, going to be 150 people show up to build the pickleball courts? No, you're going to pay $250,000 for somebody else to build them for you. I really think you need to step back and think about your responsibility as trustees to this community and decide whether this is a good investment, whether it's going to be here for 20 years from now, what's going to be here 10 years from now. being used. Thank you.
Gail Kane, Temperance. I'm wearing a Walk Bedford. This was a collaborative between several different groups when we had people walking all around the parks. But I'm going to speak to 8B first, real quick. Plain and simple, it's not safe. Having cars coming out onto Lewis Avenue at the lanes where they converge is not safe. The right northbound lane on Lewis Avenue at that intersection should be marked as a right turn only, and now it's used as an acceleration lane to bypass the middle lane to get past all that. It will be used as a cut-through just as the complex across the street is, and having attended almost every single planning meeting on this, they're nice talkers, and they come from way up north with a lot of big money. That's not an issue. If you want to spend it here, that's fine. The problem is what's the impact you're going to make? So the developer says he wants to be a part of the community. Fine. Block off the access to these main roads and build your house there to intermingle with the people you're going to bring into this community. And if you don't want to live here, then fine. Put in a community garden, put in a playground, put in pickleball courts for your people, because they're going to make an impact in our community that we're not set up to handle right now. So that's just the bottom line. As far as 8H, what should be at the forefront of this decision is the CIP. That's what you put it in place for. They claim that this was approved, and it was, but it wasn't voted on. It was just approved for $50,000. It should have at that time, with the new park board and Mr. Pryor at the helm, because there's been no other one allowed to be sitting there as the township rep, that $50,000 pickleball project should have been listed at that time on the CIP, and it should have become a part of the program to be given a rating. Instead of brushing it under the table, hiding it behind closed doors, incomplete packages or agendas on the websites, and planning did not even get to have a say because it wasn't on the list. And they were kind of scurried through that whole decision process. What I want to point out is what is on that CIP and has been rated was to repair the tennis courts at White and Carr Park. That was already decided. There is no reason why these courts and our parks should not be upgraded and provide versatility. You cannot have a negative impact like they want to do at Carr Park. They can't even find parking now for the ball teams. They're using somebody else's property, and that company is taking the liability. You're doing one thing to serve one select group of people, not a whole lot. So convert them. Make them a pickleball and a tennis combo. If there's a problem with a senior not being able to tell colors or know what lines are for tennis and what lines are for pickleball, or put up some backstops and use it for racquetball, handball, make it versatile. This spending, and it was strictly for the concrete if I understood, we had Manick and Smith did a red flag special here and compared all these. All of a sudden we have a gazillion people that want to give prices. We can't get bids on anything else. I don't see it on the agenda for bids for the old cars. So what needs to happen is that it needs to stop. Just stop right now. Take it back to the table. Make it simple. You go to White Park, convert that one, and go to Carr Park and convert what is there. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. We don't have the money to support our fire department. That's an issue, whether people know it or not. And I'm sorry, I don't want some senior citizen with a pickleball paddle coming to save my life. I want the fire department to be paid and funded and staffed. Thank you.
Any other comments? We'll be moving on. Next is 8, new business, vouchers for payment, Ms. Hirschberger.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $95,351.56. Fire Fund, $30,123.41. Fire Equipment, $8,452.51. Downtown Development Authority, $267.18. Library, $6,252.23. Capital Asset Revolving Fund, $825.32. Building Department, $3,814.21. Sewer O&M, $2,308.18. Trust and Agency Fund, $7,971.87, for a grand total of $155,366.47.
Support.
Wait a second. Oh, you got it. Okay. Ms. Hirschberger, please take the roll.
Ms. Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion passes. 8B, rezoning request from C2 Shopping Center to A+/-8.19 acres RM-2 multifamily residential to be combined to a +/-14.48 acres zone RM-2, parcel number 5802-026-059-01. Local commercial Stearns Road on vacant parcel located on the east side of Lewis Avenue north of Stearns Road, parcel number 58-02-026-059-05.
Me too. Yeah. So yeah, this is the applicant is looking to rezone what is currently zoned C2 and combine it with another parcel that's adjoining it that is RM2 currently, to rezone, have it be a couple portions C1 business, and then the main portion be RM2, and then brought into conjunction into one parcel, or at least the multifamily portion. This came to the Planning Commission in December 23. The applicant was looking to rezone the whole thing RM2, and then that got recommended to deny. Came to us in January 24, and then it was pulled. They pulled their application, so it was on our agenda in January 24, and then so now the applicant is reapplying with a little bit of a tweak, adding in these C1 portions so that the whole thing is not all RM2, and then the Planning Commission recommended to approve. That was a 4-3 vote. So any other questions, or if you want the applicant to come up?
Come up.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you this evening. My name is John Gaber, 380 North Old Woodward, Birmingham. I'm the attorney for the property owner, the applicant tonight. And I just want to make a few general points about this rezoning request. First of all, if you look at the criteria to use for a rezoning request, we meet those criteria, and I think your planning consultant said that in her report as well. The rezoning is consistent with the mixed-use designation of the master plan, because we're trying to rezone it both multifamily and C1. The RM2 rezoning is consistent with the surrounding uses and the surrounding zoning. Multifamily is consistent with the apartment use west of Lewis Avenue. It's also consistent with the undeveloped 14 acres immediately to the east of it. And that's what we're proposing to combine to make that whole area multifamily. And the potential for RM2 uses in the ordinance is limited to multifamily, duplex, and single-family uses, all of which we would submit are compatible with this area. If you look at the C1, what we're proposing is the two frontages, both on Stearns and on Lewis, to remain C1. And C1 would provide local business, neighborhood type of commercial uses for residents nearby. We believe that these uses would service the adjacent residential. You can have retail businesses, personal service businesses, medical, general office, restaurants, banks, child care facilities to service the immediate area, which is what we propose. And finally, the rezoning is consistent with development trends in the area. I mean, providing apartment housing to service young professionals and empty nesters is needed. Providing neighborhood commercial to service these residential users is needed. And it also provides a transition between Lewis Avenue, which is commercial and proposed to be commercial, between this area and the residential uses further north and further west. Now, there were a couple, your planning consultant in her report, there were a couple of reasons that she objected to this, that she had difficulty with, and I'd like to respond to those because we wholeheartedly disagree with that rationale. First, she says that the proposed C1 use zoning can be divided into multiple separate commercial lots, increasing the impact. Well, the first point I would make is that we're downzoning the property from shopping center C2 to local business C1. So there's going to be less impact as a result of the zoning classification and what can go there. Secondly, we no longer have any land division rights for these parcels. They're used in this transaction. And what that means is that there won't be any other land division rights created for 10 more years. And even if there is a land division right created in 10 years, it's going to be difficult to use. Based on your zoning ordinances and the size of these parcels, you could only have one division. So say you had one of these parcels, and in 10 years or more it was divided. I mean, what's that going to do? Essentially, we would submit that it's not going to change anything out there, because right now with one parcel, you could put a single building, you could have multiple users in that building. Say you could put two parcels there, convert it into two parcels. You could put two buildings, but those two buildings would be restricted by setbacks and such. So I don't know if you get as much square footage out of two buildings as you would out of one. And secondly, they'd use a combined access. We're proposing a shared access between the multifamily and the commercial, both to Stearns and to Lewis. And that's the access point that would be utilized for the commercial as well. If you had one of the commercial parcels that was divided into two, they would have to use the same access point, because it wouldn't meet the access management standards of the road commission to have separate curb cuts so close to one another. So we really think that this is a non-issue in terms of dividing this parcel into multiple separate commercial lots and thereby increasing the impact. The second reason that she cites in the report is the lack of sufficient driveway frontage on Lewis. And the reason we don't believe this is an issue is, first of all, this is a site plan issue. It's not a rezoning issue. Secondly, we have to work with the road commission and with you and the township to ensure safe vehicular access in accordance with their access management standards. We have to meet those to get permits that we need from the road commission. The acceleration, deceleration lanes, tapers, curb returns, those would typically be in the Lewis right-of-way. They wouldn't be on the parcel. And even if some of that were on the parcel, Lewis right now is a 90-foot right-of-way. For roads like this, typically what happens is when when a project is proposed, the road commission will ask for additional right-of-way, probably to get this to 120-foot right-of-way, which means they're going to ask for an additional 15-foot of right-of-way from us. So what that means is that between our property, that 15-foot right-of-way, and the current right-of-way that exists in Lewis Avenue, there's going to be plenty of room for tapers and these, these safety components to ensure that this driveway is a safe driveway and complies with the county standards. So for these reasons, we disagree with that staff report. We think that we comply with the rezoning criteria that are set forth. We believe that we comply with the master plan, and we respectfully request your affirmative vote tonight as the Planning Commission recommended. And I'm here with Nathan Wagner, our civil engineer, too, to answer any questions that you may have.
In terms of the parcel 2, which is on Lewis Avenue, is there any reason why you wouldn't give that up to make that your entrance way and back to the apartments? I mean, I understand the need of city property and values and so on, but...
Well, parcel 2, I mean, that's, I believe that's about 300 feet wide. Parcel 2 is, in terms of frontage, close to 300 feet. We've got 64 feet currently with the access drive that is currently there. There's 64 foot of width. 64 foot of width is sufficient for the drive. If you figure you've got about 30 foot of pavement, and then even if you put sidewalks and landscaping in, you've got an extra 34 foot to accommodate that. And as I mentioned, in the right-of-way of Lewis and the additional 15 feet that we're going to be asked to give, you can put those tapers, decel, excel, curb returns, all of those improvements to satisfy the Road Commission standards. So, I mean, it's something that we would look at, but we don't think it's necessary at this point in time. I mean, I think that would be something that's further developed as the site plans come forward.
Here's the thing, I look at our master plan, and we're always talking about walkability and so on. My concern is because we have the apartments across the street.
Yep.
Now we're going to be putting these apartments over here. We don't have any sidewalks. We don't have any crosswalks to get across Lewis Avenue or any of that. Is your company looking to do that? I know you're not required to, but you're not only are we putting a traffic load on there, but you're putting a people load on there that, we talk about senior citizens, but there's no way I'm going to get a scooter to come down Lewis Avenue. Get to the commercial stuff.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that's been given any thought or...
Well, we're certainly willing to put sidewalks on our property, both Stearns and Lewis, to help facilitate this. In terms of extending, sidewalks, well, first of all, you'd have to cross at the intersection. So in terms of our property and that almost 400 foot of frontage, we can do that. We can install sidewalks there. We can install sidewalks within the development itself, along the entrance, actually along both entrance drives. So we can help to facilitate that on behalf of the residents. Yes.
In terms, I was looking at our planner's review. Page 5, it's the recommended, it says it's consistent with the Bedford Township master plan. Okay, and I realize that this isn't about the site plan, but have you had discussions with the Road Commission in terms about access, or because they can do what they want?
Exactly. I mean, I defer to Nathan on that, but we have had communications with them and discussions about that.
Yeah, Nathan Wagner, Cash Wagner and Associates, 402 East 13th Street, Jasper, Indiana. Part of the reason there's been kind of a delay in our initial submittal and this resubmittal was working with the Road Commission for off and on for the past several months, well over a year probably. We looked at several scenarios on where to place the driveways on Stearns, where to place them on Lewis, or use the existing one on Lewis. So that's how we ended up where we are.
Yeah. Do we have some other questions? Go on, Joe.
Hey, first, you can take care of your crosswalk problem.
Okay.
We take that dumb one at Telegraph and Stearns, and
we're going to move it.
Okay.
Thank
All right?
you. Let's do that.
We can do that.
Let's do that this
Take
weekend.
care of that problem. It's been a pain and a thorn in my side for years now. But getting back on track, how many units are you projecting, if this was to go through, that you're going to put in? 200, 300, 400? What are we looking at size-wise?
So this parcel that we're asking to get rezoned would be 72.
72, and how many
If you combine it with the existing RM2 to the east, that's another 144.
Okay.
So 216 total, which is a reduction in what we had originally asked in the first go-around.
Okay. And if my memory serves me correctly, didn't your group come before the BZA on a variance request for parking spaces a while back?
Correct.
And that was granted. That was on the one.
Granted.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, the issue is with adding 216 total units is the amount of traffic more that's going to be on Stearns Road in Lewis. And we tabled, which will be coming, 8I will be coming back, a traffic study again tonight about getting into that, which I'm still a solid no on, because we all know what's wrong with Stearns Road. It's overburdened, absolutely. And we all know it will take a monumental amount of money to correct that problem, which nobody will be alive that's in this room today that'll see that happen, especially to go from Lewis to 23. So I have concerns about at 216 total units, between 2 and 4 people. Let's go low end, 200 or 2 people per unit. You're looking at another 400 people plus. And I'm sure some of those will be 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units.
So working with the road commission so far, we've got a plan with where we've got the driveway off Stearns to allow a 3-lane section there. So we would have a left turn lane into the property coming from the west.
Oh, I understand that completely. It's just further west when all that traffic are going to go to 23. A lot of them will go down that way. If you have to get over to 75, a lot of people cut up to Erie Road and over, but Stearns Road to 75.
We've also done an updated traffic study. It's still preliminary. It's not final until we get through go into the plant full design. But the preliminary numbers showed that the level of services at the intersections, which would be our driveways, and the main intersection of Lewis and Stearns, the level of service would not change.
I disagree with your study simply because we live here. We see Stearns Road every day. We drive on it. I've got constituents that live on Stearns Road that sometimes can't even get out of their driveway from their regular home, and they have to turn right to go west in order to come back and go east if they need to.
Right.
So that's my traffic study that I see every day.
And I'm not saying that you're right. There are more cars that will come out of that place, right? I'm just saying by level of service is defined as the amount of time you have to wait to turn or pull out. And those will stay in those acceptable levels. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you.
Joe, one of the things that I've been going back and forth on a little bit was it's C2 now, right? So going down to C1, and we're just talking about Lewis and Stearns, those things going down to C1. If we kept it as is, it's C2, a larger business could come in, potentially a shopping center, and there's nothing we'd be able to do about it, right, because it's owned properly. And so then we're going to have an added impact regardless. And so I go back and forth of, okay, well, is a shopping center going to be worse off with traffic and more cars and more people, or is it going to be the C1 and residential multifamily kind of proposal that we have here now? And I go back and forth. I don't know what's going to be worse for traffic, right? One thing we have a say in, right now in the rezoning process, or we do nothing and a shopping center comes in and there's nothing we can do, and it's going to be potentially more traffic. So that's just one thing, one angle that I'm looking at when it comes to this whole thing, and we're going to have traffic either way at some point, I think, right?
And I do agree with you, but we also denied a request for rezoning a couple meetings ago to put a Baskin-Robbins and Dunkin' Donuts on Secor Road because of the traffic impact and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe Baskin-Robbins, Dunkin' Donuts can go over there in Lewis Avenue, I guess. But I get what you're saying, Josh, and yes, eventually something is going to go there, whether it be commercial or whether it's residential. It's not going to be a green space. It's not going to be a park. Something is going to go there.
Yep.
Is a wetland study been done on all this property, or is any of it going to get knocked out because
There were some isolated wetlands that were non-jurisdictional.
Okay.
I got a real quick question for Phil. Say this is denied hypothetically tonight. Is this going to turn into another Whitman property where we're going to end up in litigation in court for years and things like that? Is that potential?
I can't predict that.
I know you can't predict that.
I mean, if you deny it, you can deny a rezoning if the denial is based on a rational relationship to a legitimate public or governmental interest. If you're going to deny it, I would focus in on what your planner's comments were to support that. So I can't predict whether it would result in litigation or if it would result in the developer taking a second look and coming back with a different development plan. Can't predict that. So it could result in litigation, and then it would be defended. So if someone and the board collectively chooses to deny the rezoning request, and support it on the record with the reasons given by your planner. I understand the developer and the developer's attorney disagree with those things, but that's what often results in litigation. I would say this, and Jody's up there and she can comment on this. If I'm not mistaken, and Jody will certainly correct me if I'm wrong, I think our assessor has offered an opinion that there might be one split left before the 10-year period elapses. So that's something to take into consideration. That was an opinion, I believe, offered by our assessor, Tony Mayard. And the other thing that you could consider, C1 uses are allowed in the C2 zoning district. So to incorporate C1 uses into what's there and how it's zoned now, you can do that. C1 uses tend to be more dense, or can be more dense, because if property is able to be split, you can have more than one use. And C1 uses generally provide for less restrictive setbacks, things like that. So to convert it from C2 to C1, C1 can go there now. So I think the developer has obviously they have a plan and that's why they're requesting C1 versus C2, but it's not as innocuous as it may seem. There could be further splits, and there could be more dense development with less setback requirements. So you need to consider that. So I should stop talking and let your planning director address those issues.
Thank you.
I just wanted to remind the board that when we look at rezonings, we aren't looking at a site plan, what's being approved by the road commission or the drain commission. At this point, we're looking at what the intent is and how it will impact the community in that area. I just wanted to give a couple examples, and if you have any questions for me. The C1 uses, to keep the intensity, I think the applicant or the attorney had advised that they were going to look at using the drives off of Stearns and off of Lewis for all parcels to have a shared drive. Keep in mind that would be a private drive. It will not be a road. It would be a private drive. And those all then, not only the multifamily to the east, the proposed multifamily, and both commercial pieces would all four parcels separately would all be using those two driveway accesses. For example of the impact that a C1 or C2 issue of a smaller parcel in our community may impact, Arby's location on Secor and Stearns. That is a 1.5 acre piece of property, zone C1, came in for 3 units. They put in a wall, and now it is 4 units as a commercial use. Secor and Smith, Dr. Lehman's office, C1. Sometimes there isn't even enough parking in that area. So keep that in mind, just examples of C1 uses in the township as a multi-unit building, which could be both of these parcels on top of the 22 acres of multifamily being developed. in reference to Mr. Mayor's, the assessor's comments. The reason that was requested was because the applicant was looking at all parcels that were being proposed to be rezoned. We were not looking at just the C2 and then if the C1s were proposed. It's all 3 parcels as being presented. And as a township, should the rezoning be approved, we would not create a split zone property that would have to go through the land division. If it is approved, it would have to go through a land division. Once the board makes a decision, there would be no withdrawing the application. That's just some clarification, or if anybody has any questions for me.
And just remember, this is a rezoning request. We cannot impose conditions. So if you feel it's in the best interest of Bedford Township and its residents to grant the rezoning request, and any uses that would be allowable in the resulting zoning districts, provided that site plan review can be approved, provided that setbacks are adequate. Planning commission issues relative to site plan, that's what you have. So you can't limit use and you can't condition the use. Only the applicant can condition uses if they came to you with a conditional use application, which they have not. So we can't touch that. That's up to them. So any and all allowable uses within those resulting zoning districts would be fair game, or special land uses that might otherwise apply to those particular zoning districts if they can meet the standards within the zoning ordinance relative to special land use. So things to think about.
Jody, in terms of that private drive, I understand it's right next to Pavlov's.
Yes, I believe Pavlov's has an easement, and the applicant can probably clarify that, but I believe Pavlov's, that was prior legal with, I think that access has been there since the bank was there, and that is prior legal. So I believe that's where they're working with the road commission. They would have to bring that up to compliance with the standards of today. But then once it's developed at the curb cut, then it would become a private driveway. And I believe Pavlov's has an easement to utilize that. So that would be another access point of utilizing that access of ingress egress onto the Lewis Avenue.
So when you say Pavlov's can use it, what are they using it for?
They use it for ingress egress. Their easement.
The driveway going into Pavlov's,
I believe, is where they're going to
guys own it?
propose.
Yeah, it'd be the current drive would be, that they're utilizing right now, that's the location where the 64-foot drive to these properties would be.
Off of Lewis Avenue.
Off of Lewis Avenue.
Running
yes.
From west to east.
Running west, east-west.
And Pavlov's is located directly to the north of that 64-foot drive?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And they do, I recall, they do have easement rights, as Ms. Rector has.
They have a permanent recorded
I
easement?
believe it's a permanent recorded easement.
It's on title.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that the easement is on the property, subject property being requested to be rezoned.
Mm-hmm.
None of the access is on Pavlov's. It is entirely on this property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is what we contemplated. But I just want to make one comment in response to what Mr. Goldsmith has said. He's given you a lot of wise comments this evening. Just the one thing I would take issue with is if you read the assessor's report, there's one land division right now, currently, that we would use to facilitate these land divisions. There won't be any land division rights after that. So we'd have to wait 10 years for a redivision, assuming the act stays as it currently is. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
I'm glad you clarified it because I had a conversation with the planning director earlier on about this. So it seemed to me that he was suggesting that there may be one after that. So if that's the case, I certainly didn't want to misrepresent anything. So
I understand. Thank you.
I have a question. I listened to the Planning Commission meeting, and this was brought up, the splitting of the C1 parcels and the practicality of splitting a 1.93 acre lot and a 1.3 acre lot. Jody, you mentioned the Arby's Plaza. How many acres was that at Secor and Stearns?
I think it's 1.4.
That whole lot is 1.4 acres. So yeah, they had this discussion at the Planning Commission meeting. I didn't know if anybody else has more experience than I when it comes to development and the practicality of splitting a 1.9 acre lot or a 1.3 acre lot, and is that actually feasible with the setbacks that will be needed and things of that nature. I don't know if anyone has any opinions on that, or if it's feasible, or maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I know those are small lots.
I can advise that the frontage requirements in a C1 is 100 feet of road frontage, and both of those, that's why it was addressed, is both parcels being proposed to be created, both provide the 100 feet of road frontage, and in a C1 there is no area requirement, whereas C2 requires 200 feet of road frontage and a minimum of 3 acres to create those parcels. So not saying that a 1.9 acre piece of C1 could not be split if it had road frontage, because it would be depending on site plan approval and meeting the requirements. And once the property would be rezoned to multifamily, setbacks then change depending on the surrounding district that it abuts. And I think the planner refers to some of that in the setbacks of her review of 0 setbacks when it abuts another commercial piece, which would be to the south. So it would be depending on the size of the structure that was presented at site plan, should there be another land division.
Gotcha.
And I do agree with the applicant on the review from Tony. I believe in their deed, it was required they could only have one by their deed, but that's where the discussion was at the Planning Commission on the number of land divisions. It was in the deed or in the purchase agreement when they purchased this property that there was only one. However, if that would have not been stated, that's why they have to go through the land division process, because the assessor says this is one parcel split because they're going to combine it. Otherwise, it would not be moving forward.
Okay, so that's all accurately stated.
I just wanted to give some clarification as well.
Yeah, that's accurately stated by the applicant, and then they would need to, the next available split would occur 10 years down the road, as he stated.
A question for Mr. Cash. In terms of your design of your building, has it ever been thought about, and I know, again, this isn't sites or designs or whatever, of doing commercial on the bottom and apartments on the top, and then just doing your other buildings in the back? I mean, has that been looked at?
We have looked at it in other communities, but you end up with more commercial in that case than what we'd have proposed here. They don't.
But then it's concentrated, though, in one area.
Right, and then the problem becomes the tenants that live above the commercial. What's the commercial use? And you get into that discussion of late hour commercial use versus tenants above, and that's why they don't do it.
Any more questions?
I just had one more thing. Could I ask George to bring up that plan that he had from the planner's review showing the east and west side of Lewis Avenue?
Sure.
Can he hear me? I know that Mr. Gore had brought up the rezoning request that was previous, and I just wanted to advise that on the west side of Lewis Avenue, where the existing apartments, you have Bainbridge Place, Oliver Place, and then you have Jacob's Supply, you have the Ranch House, and then moving south, there are some vacant commercial pieces already existing on that side that have had no movement forward on commercial. There is a piece on Stearns, and I know discussion was the last time regarding vacant commercial pieces already within the area. There is a piece on the south side of where the Whitman Center is located as well, which is on the north side of the access drive. And then there is just south of the piece that's being sought to be rezoned, there is a C1 piece that is also vacant, just to give you a quick review of the surrounding area as well. Does anyone have any more questions for me?
I mean, if we take a look at the commercial property on Lewis Avenue, there's some properties that have been for sale for years on the Secretary of State's office. There's parcels and so on. But we also need to take a look at the master plan, and Lewis Avenue was designated as an economic corridor. That's why it was expanded in terms for the traffic at the time. And part of the downfall that Lewis Avenue didn't take off like Secor Road, one, when Northtown Mall went under, that changed things over there. Even though it was in Toledo, that was supposed to be the growth area. Okay? Well, and then when we wouldn't allow big box store to come in, that changed Lewis Avenue as well. So I'm just saying there's been some properties for sale for a long time. And what I take a look at, it's like I go back what Josh said, you know, we're looking at commercial, we're looking at apartments, something's going to come, you know, in terms of this. But that's a little history there on Lewis Avenue, why it didn't take off like it should. Now we've slowly gotten things like the plaza where 734 is, Hickory Creek came, we had a few subdivisions, not nearly what Lambertville got. But part of that is they got an anchor with Kroger's. We don't have that anchor on Lewis Avenue. So
I'll make a motion. All right, I'm going to make a motion to deny the rezoning request for parcel located on Lewis Avenue identified as parcel number 5802-026-059-05 from C2 Shopping Center Business District to RM2 Multifamily Residential District and C1 Local Business. And I'm going to only include the one planner point. For the sake of argument, I'll take out the land division piece and state for the reason the proposed RM2 portion of the site lacks sufficient frontage along Lewis Avenue to accommodate an adequately designed independent driveway entrance. The current frontage does not meet Monroe County Road Commission standards for safe and functional access, including minimal driveway width, proper curb returns and tapers, and required deceleration lanes. This deficiency compromises access safety and functionality for a for a high-density residential development and may lead to traffic and circulation issues both on the site and along adjacent roadways.
support. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll give my spiel now, and then we'll go ahead and vote here. I went back and forth on this many different times, did my homework. There's a few teachers out there obviously in denial that I did any homework. But no, I tried to take a holistic approach. I tried to look at every single thing, went through the packet many times, watched the planning meeting, kind of reached out to the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, Bedford Public Schools. You know, there's a lot of different stakeholders in this, the business community down there, positives, negatives. I appreciate Mr. Montry taking out for the sake of the argument the first concern. The second one I can agree with on that. And so, yeah, I think long-term we need to start looking into creating a larger tax base for the township and bringing things in here. I don't know if this is the right fit with the traffic concerns that have been raised. And so going back and forth, yeah, I'm ready to vote. It was a tough one for me, though. It's close.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
It's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Any further discussion? Please take the roll.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Okay, we're on to C. Number 8C, approval to amend Bedford Township Ordinance number 44 as to modify article, what number is that, Roman numeral? Is that 44? 44, general provisions, section 400-1903- accessory buildings and accessory building table. I believe that's you, Greg?
So we're doing the accessory building. So this is basically cleaning up, which, Joe, you're on the BZA. You see a ton of these. Jody and the Planning Commission have put in a ton of time and effort trying to clean this whole thing up to possibly minimize the amount of variances that people need to apply for, and really clean it up and clean up the whole operation. That makes the most sense to. We're constantly having people come and requesting variances and that makes sense, kind of, and so tweak this ordinance to really clean that up and maybe not have so many variances constantly because of it being how much time and effort were put into cleaning up the ordinance, I guess. And then I don't know if Jody has anything more to add or any other questions.
The thing I wanted to add really was first that keep in mind this is just being proposed right now. 200 square feet does not, or less of an accessory building does not require a building permit by building code. However, we would like to be able to educate the public to say that at least building to building requires 10 feet or you have to build a firewall. We know not all 200 square foot accessory buildings are designed that way. So we thought if we required some type of permitting process to at least look at the plan, see what's being proposed, and then that leads me to my next comment that the building official and the planning department, and I expressed it to the planning commission, that we would encourage the board to require 5 feet and not 3 feet within the accessory building table. And the commission chose to leave it at 3 feet, but I advised them I would still come to the board and request it to be 5 feet because building to building, even in the accessory building table, minimum setback from any building is 10 feet, and that is by building code. If there has been some questioning regarding the permit and the permit fee, I'm open to suggestions. I've had discussion and even moving forward with just some type of administrative review for the 200 square feet where at least a property owner would come in, show their plot plan, show what type of building they were putting up and where they were going to put it so we could at least approve that where it is on the lot is meeting the setback requirements and that the structure meets code requirements should it be even over 200 square feet. Everything else would still be the same other than we did change before the ordinance went from 800 to 2,500. There was no in between. So we were getting a lot of variances at 0.05 of an acre just to have another 100 square feet. So that is what we amended were the allowable square footage. And then we did provide some additional requirements on height requirements, but then we did increase the setbacks as it exists today. So if a person had 0.45 of an acre up to an acre, they could have a total square footage, 2 maximum structures. And if they did a structure that was 16 feet in height, they would have to be 15 feet from any building and 10 feet from the property and side yard rear lines. So we increased those as they were existing today, but allowed some flexibility within the different size requirements of area.
Craig, regarding the fee, what was the general consensus of the Planning Commission? I mean, did you guys go back and forth, or was 100 something that was agreeable? Was there pushback, more or less?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so. I think the intent was to cover the review and for an inspection. But if the board's desire is to remove the fee, then I would just leave it as an approval of the plot plan that's submitted and not have any inspection. Otherwise, we have to make sure that no contracted employees do any inspections because that would be then out of the fund without no additional building permit fee cost. And I'm okay without doing a permit fee. We are not even requiring a permit now for them, but at least we would be reviewing them as a contract. But the Planning Commission had, they actually agreed on the $100 to cover because I believe the building inspection fees were just recently changed.
But right now, someone could build under 200 square feet without a permit, without any cost.
And not put it on the property line. Mm-hmm. And not meet any setbacks. The reason we're asking for the 5 feet is 10 feet from building to building, and that would avoid anybody putting a a structure closer than 5 feet to their property line, and a neighboring property putting theirs closer than 5 feet to a property line. Anything that is existing would be prior legal nonconforming, and then should something happen and change, then they would have to bring it into compliance, at least submit for the permit process.
So we deal a lot with prior legal non-conforming lots from way back when in the BZA. So now we'll saddle a future BZA with these prior non-legal conforming. I like that. And you want to go, what was the reasoning of staying at 3 feet? You want 5, and I agree with 5, because we see a lot of property line stuff. In the
Planning Commission thought some parcels are smaller, and 5 feet would be impeding their property, but keep in mind, single family, least restrictive is the 60 feet in an R3, R2A and R2B require a minimum of 80 feet of road frontage. We're not looking at anything really for setback regarding PUDs. A lot of them have restrictions on accessory buildings, but most of them are either 80 feet or 60 feet in width on a residential property.
And you want 5 feet for minimum setback from side and rear property lines?
Correct. And that's just for the, if you notice, I have an asterisk on the first one for 200 feet or less, and then the 400 square feet. Those are the two that Planning and Building Department, it's this sheet right here.
So I see that. So if we go with 5, or would we get requests for variances for 3? Probably.
I'm not sure. Building code requires 5 feet from any property line with building to building.
Right.
That's the concern, is not those types of structures don't meet building code.
Correct.
Building to building setbacks. But that's why the Planning Commission talked about 3 feet, is due to the size of the properties.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Joe, I got a question. Do you think this is going to solve some of the problems on BZA?
We're probably going to create problems for a board 30 years from now, like we got problems from stuff that was done in the 1970s. We've seen a couple of those, have we not, Phil? You know, because of something that they did in the 70s that we have.
There's nothing you're going to do about it.
There's nothing you're going to do about it. I mean,
You're gonna have
yes,
that either way.
this is going to correct some problems, I do believe. Yes.
And you'll have situations where someone might have an accessory building that's closer than 5 feet, which is a prior legal non-conforming structure. And if they wanted to add on to that, they could come to the Board of Zoning Appeals to request an expansion of a prior legal non-conforming structure. And so the BZA would have jurisdiction and authority to hear that. You may have situations where someone thinks that 5 feet, maybe something less than 5 feet would be safe and or okay. But then you look at it, each case on its own merits, and look at the neighborhood that it's in and what the use is to the neighbor's side, that sort of thing. So there are options to deal with it if we can, if it's necessary.
And I did want to add to Mr. Pryor's comment regarding resolving some issues with variances. I did advise the Planning Commission that I will be letting the Board of Zoning Appeals know if there are variances, that we just amended this ordinance to provide some flexibility, especially I think increasing and allowing the additional height on some of the structures. A lot of people have campers and RVs they want to store inside, and that's why we felt like we should look at allowing some flexibility on height. But I did advise the Commission that I would provide the information to the Board of Zoning Appeals that this ordinance was just recently amended to allow some flexibility to avoid more variance requests.
And to limit the amount of total requests that come in for accessory buildings, correct?
I think
Optimistically.
in the last 2 months, I think we had 5 on either size or height due to different types of uses that people, And by all means, as a township, we want people to store their things and items inside so the neighbors don't have to be the ones looking at it every day. So I think that this allows that flexibility, especially with RVs and campers.
Accessory buildings are probably the #1 variance request that the BZA looks at, and a lot of them are height related because people have fifth wheels, they have campers, they have motor homes, and they want to keep them inside, and that at the end of the day, that requires a higher structure so you can get that vehicle inside a building. So I think this will help. This will alleviate some of the variance requests that come before the BZA, and will save the residents money because then they don't, you don't have to come in and pay the fee to have it heard and have a public hearing and pay for the publication.
Any more questions?
I just have one. If we could make a determination before a motion is made regarding if we're going to include the fee and the inspection on these, just because if so, then my fee schedule will have to be amended also on the after the next item. But if the desire is to not require that, then I would like it to be amended as well.
Thoughts on that? Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I would vote to not require that. I mean, people shouldn't have to pay. We already pay for everything else. If they want to build a shed on their property, like I said, if they come in, just show them where it's built, and you guys, yeah, that's good to go. I'm fine with that.
So am I.
I would request it then to be maybe an administrative permit, at least so we can require the permit, because right now the ordinance says that it's not required at all. No permit is required. So if we're going to at least review it, at least this way, then if we do get a complaint regarding wherever the structure is, we have something that the applicant has provided, the resident has shown where it's going to be, not impeding anything with the neighboring property. We have it designed that maybe either building, planning, or even ordinance officer could sign off on it to move the process forward on this, really on the same day they submit.
So
keep in mind, that's only for 200 square feet or less. Everything else still would require a regular building permit.
Anything else? Any more questions?
Did you say ordinance officer could sign off on it too?
Well, they'd be the ones getting the complaint, so we felt that if we offered all three of us to sign off, if they got a complaint, they would already know that the permit was approved, and it would eliminate time frame if myself, Dennis, or Damon were not available, two of us signing off on it. That's the only reason we said 3.
So 200 square feet or less, they would not need a permit, correct?
It's the only thing we're asking for on the administrative permit right now is 200 square feet or less. Anything over 200 requires a building permit as it stands today.
Okay.
200 or less is, as this is recommending a zoning permit just so that there's some sort of permit that there's something.
But somebody would still have to go out and inspect it, and somebody just can't throw up a 200 square foot hodgepodge.
Well, they would be submitting it to us for administrative review, showing us what they were proposing and where they were proposing it, and administratively we would approve it, 2 of the 3 of the departments, to say, yes, you can move forward, showing the setback that it meets the 3 or 5 feet, and then a rendering of what the structure is being put up. But it would be no fee, no building permit fee, no inspection fee. We would go by the plot plan that was submitted.
So I go by something that's already pre-built. You want to see a drawing of that?
Or at least a picture what it looks like, show where you're going to put it on your property, and show that you meet the 3 or 5 feet, whatever is determined by the board.
And you'll accept just a hand drawing or whatever, nothing?
And that's what we accept now, is just a hand-drawn sketch. Even for the larger accessory buildings, Dennis does require the structural end of it.
So you're looking for a motion that would adopt the amended language as presented by the Planning Commission to Section 400.1912 and 400.1903, and whoever makes the motion has to specify with respect to structures that are 200 square feet or less, whether the setback will be 3 feet or 5 feet, with an administrative permit being required and no application fee payable.
Correct.
This one's only 1903. We're not to the next one yet.
Okay, to 1912, okay. 1903, relative to accessory
buildings.
And we're still in C. Any further questions?
So if we took out the zoning permit, then you said an administrative permit, what would that?
It's going to be the same permit that's in your packet. We're just going to amend it to not have the fee on it and then still require the two. I think there was a permit included with the packet. Just to tweak it to make sure that it complies with what's approved tonight.
So it's same thing, just doesn't cost them $100.
Correct.
Any further questions? We ready to make a motion? Can I get one?
No, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve Bedford Township Ordinance number 44 as to modify Article 19, General Provisions, Section 400.1903 dash accessory buildings and accessory building table as amended to change the zoning permit with a $100 fee to an administrative permit with no attached fee.
Three or five feet.
Yeah, I'm the same with the 3 or 5.
I'm okay with sticking with 3. Jody doesn't like me, but I'm okay with 3.
I'll support, but I'll also add in there what Phil said, and it said 200 square foot or less, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Unless anyone is, if anyone else feels strongly about the 5 feet. So support?
Joe did.
Joe did.
Support?
Yeah,
Any
with
further
that friendly amendment.
Okay. Good. Let's take the roll, Ms. Hirschberg.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Trier votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. On to 8D. Approval to amend Bedford Township Ordinance number 44 as to modify Article 19, General Provisions, Section 400.1912 fences. Craig?
So very similar in nature as to what's going on here, just trying to clean something up, and Jody can probably give the history even better. I don't know how long this has been being talked about to fix this ordinance, and it's just a really difficult, it was a really difficult one to do, which is why the can's been kicked so far down the road. And we have discussed this at length now that it's even finally been instated, because you don't want to, trying to protect neighbors and protect somebody that wants to build a fence. Building the fence as is an expensive endeavor, relatively, and trying to clean this up so you're making sure that people aren't building fences on their neighbor's property, but also that we're not encumbering somebody that wants to put a stinking fence on their own property with 6-month waiting times and adding $1,000+ to the cost of doing so. So there's a lot of time. It seems relatively simple if you take a glance at it, but a lot of effort has been put into this to try to the best that we could kind of clean this up and then develop something to that the township has a leg to stand on, and to kind of protect the neighbors of potential fence builders. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
I just want to say there was a lengthy discussion on trying to require a boundary survey or a line survey to determine property lines, because some of those are the concerns that come in. Well, the fence is on my property. Township is still not going to determine property lines. The main goal of this is to at least educate the public of what is permitted with a fence. I will say, call today regarding a fence put up and the entire property perimeter in, and the good side is facing inward. The planks are on the outside, and unfortunately, the neighbor will have to tear out the entire fence and turn it around. So we just want to make sure that the ordinance is really not changing. We're requiring a permitting process. Same concept as the accessory buildings. If you desire to not have the fee, at least require a administrative permit to at least submit an application, show what type of fencing, what color of fencing, where it's going. Some residents have homes that are 200 feet off the section line road, and it's still a front building line cannot be more than 3.5 feet in residential and 4 feet in agricultural. So anything beyond the front building line, some residents don't understand that that is still considered front yard. And a fence in a front yard cannot exceed 3.5 feet on a residential property. And I know Joe's face is because he's had plenty of these at the variance level. So I think that that is our goal on this, is to just be able to, right now, we don't require anything. So if we get a call, we try to guide them. Avoid and see if they have any easements. If there's a drainage swale, we try to pull out the building permits to advise them the good side faces out. You can't change the existing grade. What is permitted? If you're a corner lot, you can't exceed the front building line even on a corner lot. So I think the intent of this is to try to just require initiative with the public to at least inform them what is permitted and what is not permitted.
I can tell you right now, I'm not for any type of fee. I'm not for any type of color. I've been around quite a while, quite honestly. A lot of the fence issues, they're a civil matter. I don't think we should be out checking to see if their fence is on a line, not on the line, or whatever. Quite fine, I don't feel this is even necessary. Craig, I know you guys did work and so on in planning, but
Well, we're not going to require color because that is subjective, and that was a lengthy discussion at the Planning Commission. Color is not being informed. We're looking to make sure it's defined in the ordinance as it exists today. It's wood, wrought iron. There are specific things. Chain link is not decorative. It's not considered to be a front yard permitted ordinance. So we're not changing actually what's already permitted within the ordinance. We're just asking to at least give clarification, because right now if we say there's no permit required, that's about the extent of the discussion with the residents, and I'll just put up the fence. So unfortunately, when you look in the ordinance says no permit is required, then there is no background to give them any information. And a lot of people don't know how to navigate the website to find the ordinances.
I guess I struggle a little bit. So if I live on a residential parcel and it happens to be 5 acres and zone residential, you're telling me my front yard?
It's the front building line. It's regardless.
I disagree with that too.
Well, that's been in the ordinance since 1977.
Same way I disagree with the chain link fence, because I could have a black coated chain link fence. And my understanding, if I already have an existing chain link fence, and if it's broken, I can't repair it.
You'd have to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals, prior legal nonconforming.
Which to me, I feel is totally wrong, because we have a lot of seniors that own older homes and so on. So, and some of these subdivisions have been around since the 50s. So I got to be real honest with you. To sit and call and repair a fence, I think that's a little bit of overreach.
It's what's in the ordinance today. I'm not changing any of the language. All we're asking is for a permit to be submitted.
So maybe we need to look at that and change that, because I don't agree.
I think we struggle with the fact that the ordinance defines chain link as not decorative in the front yard, and in the front yard it defines it as decorative. So right now today, if you were to replace it, if it's prior legal nonconforming, you would have to come in. And I don't know, maybe Mr. Goldsmith can address it. Being a permit has never been required, I don't know how we determine if it's prior legal nonconforming. I purchased a property, the fence has been there, that resident just put up the fence and it doesn't comply. Now I have to seek a variance. I agree with it, but it's not what the ordinance says.
Well, the definition of prior legal nonconforming is that the fence was erected prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance relative to that use or to that structure. So a lot of that, because a permit is not required, we wouldn't have a record. So a lot of that would just be on the honor system that, well, that fence has been there since 1970. And prior legal non-conforming.
To Al, to your point, that's the challenge. Is exactly, you're right about what you're saying, but then your neighbor puts up a fence on your property because they're doing the same. Well, I'm putting up a fence, and now it's on your property because there was no. That's the challenge with the whole again, which
with
is
all fences.
with all fences, and why it's such a thing that like
totally on that.
nobody wants to mess with because it's impossible. Like to try to put it together perfectly is
This won't
very
cure that.
challenging.
This
No.
isn't gonna cure that.
Well,
You can still
no.
put it up on somebody else's land because we're not checking surveys. We're not
that's
doing anything.
Yeah, I guess the hope, which I don't disagree, but that's the thing is to do that is then they need to get a land surveyor, which is going to take them 6 months and cost them $1,500 added to to do a land survey to make sure that their fence is in their own property, which isn't fair either. Is a ridiculous thing as well. The hope would be that this would mitigate without over encumbering, I guess. And I don't disagree. It's I mean, that's what everything you guys are saying. I mean, how long ago did this board tell the planning commission to try working on this?
It's been
something
ongoing. I think
talking about
because
because
it
it's
had
like
come before the board 4 times already
Yeah.
regarding fences. My concern is the reason they chose not to do the survey and try to get the residents to come into the township to be educated is that we could advise them. Township is not going to determine property lines. However, if it becomes an issue on property lines, it's going to be between neighbors. It's not going to be a township issue. Someone would have to have it surveyed, and that's where the planning commission then had discussions because whose responsibility is it to have the survey done? Well, if I'm the neighbor saying your fence is on my property, then I would say it's my responsibility to have the survey to prove your fence is on my property. So that's where the Planning Commission made further discussion that they did not want to require the survey, but at least to guide the residents if they don't know where their property lines are. Half the time, if there is a survey, it's not provided to the township. If you have a survey of your property, please bring it in. Let us put it on your property so we have it for future property owners or for future reference. But the desire was really to just try to educate, to advise of the requirements of the ordinance, because right now those are the complaints we're getting are the fence is improperly installed. It's more than 3.5 feet in the front yard. The grading was changed and now it's impeding my property. So those are the things that we're trying to at least advise the public to investigate the requirements of the ordinance.
One thing, when the township doesn't deal with it or they don't get the answers from you, you know who they call after that?
Joe.
Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff's Department.
And I know Chief Deputy Hammond and myself have handled our fair share of property line disputes. And the first thing I always asked was, have you had your property surveyed? The first question I ask. And when they say no, it hasn't been surveyed, then there's nothing that we can do. And of course they get all mad at that. But yes, property line disputes are pain.
Yes.
And did we address 2 front yards in any of this?
2 front yards is still going to be the same. It's still a front yard, still have to be outside the road right-of-way and a corner clearance. But the ordinance language is not changing. The only thing that we're requesting is some kind of plot plan to be submitted, to at least reviewed, to make sure the type of fence, where it's going, and the height of it meets the requirements of the ordinance as it exists.
So, as is the process, they can just go build basically on their own property without coming to Township Hall, without any education or anything, right? That's what we have right now.
Fortunately, yes.
Which then leads to issues down the road with BZA or whatever. This right here is not changing any ordinance that we have. It's just simply changing the process of them having to come to the township first to get education on what their rights are and what they can and cannot do. So we're really not telling them anything that they can't do already, correct?
Correct.
But how much are we charging them for
That was the discussion. It was going to be the same as the zoning permit fee. That's why I said if you determine to remove it now, then I don't have to amend the fee schedule. We're fine with it being administratively reviewed. We just feel like it's more educating the public of what's, because our ordinance is permissive. If it doesn't say you can, you can't.
I just think we can educate the public without making them jump through hoops to put a fence in. I feel like we're turning it into an HOA. We're going to tell everybody how to do everything from now on.
Right. I agree.
And I'm not going to disagree with the fact of us advising the public that a permit would be required. However, we're not telling them anything that the ordinance already doesn't state today. So if we want to change the ordinance to allow it to be more flexible, then that is a discussion. But right now, the only thing we're asking is for a permit to be accepted with a plot plan showing what type of fence, where it's going, the height of the fence to make sure it complies with today's existing ordinance.
Yeah, but there's no teeth in the ordinance. The only thing you're going to make me do is either take it down or turn it around, because we're saying if it's on somebody else's property, go get an attorney. So I have to agree with Trudy. It's like if we keep saying we want to educate the public,
and the public would have to have a survey.
Okay, we have ways to do that. We put it on Facebook, we put it on the web. This is what you have to do. If you don't, this is what could happen to you. Your neighbor might sue you. I'm just not a big believer in having government tell me everything to do on a daily basis. A fence is a pretty easy thing to do in the building industry. Okay.
And I'm agreeing with that, but maybe ordinance enforcement should have been here and said how many complaints they've had about fences. Like I said,
and they get them, and I know because
installing it with the good side facing inward, without educating the public and them knowing that, now we're going to tell them the $3,000 fence of 6-foot privacy you just put up around your property, you have to tear it all down and reinstall it because it's installed properly. We're just trying to educate the public to let them know. No one's trying to put any more restrictions on fences. It's what exists today. And I don't feel as a planning department, and I don't feel the planning commission felt like we were restricting, because we're not changing the language. All we're asking for is for some type of submittal that if there is a complaint, we can say they submitted an application, it was approved, and this fence was approved to where it was going to be, the height of it, and where it was going to be installed.
So let's back up where you're saying where it's going to be installed, but yet you don't have a survey, and you don't. So I guess
it states right on the permit that you have that township does not determine property lines, and that would be on the.
But we're bringing them in to tell. You're saying bring them in and show us where your fence is going to be. Well, you have no way to verify that if you're not asking for a survey.
We're not saying we're verifying property lines.
I didn't say that.
We want to verify where the fence is going, because we don't want to.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. You're saying where the fence is going. So what does that mean?
6 feet in the rear yard of your home and more than 3.5 feet in the front yard. Where the property line is, I'm just going to say, we don't determine property lines. Even we're on the same subject as the Planning Commission had with the accessory buildings. No different than that. We're going to look at the plot plan. It's going to say it's 5 feet from the property line. We're not going to go out and determine it's 5 feet from the property line. They're going to tell us when you build a home, if you don't have a survey when you submit a home, when you submit the accessory building, the building official is not going to determine your property line when they come out. This fence determining property lines is no different than any other submittal, as if it was the accessory building. When they show the plot plan, we're going to determine.
The plot plan is showing you where things are going. That's what I'm saying. When you do a plot plan, you're going to plot out what the. Huh?
No different than where they're going to plot plan where the fence is going to go.
But if I own my property and I want to put up a fence, and I go to I say, okay, I have my own survey. I know where my property stakes are. I'm putting up my fence. I don't really want to come to you and tell you, and don't take it negatively, because this is not against you. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to put up my own fence. If I mess up and I screw up and I put it on my neighbor's property, that's my fault. Let them sue me, or I'm gonna fix my fence. If they have a fence installer and that fence installer doesn't know what he's doing, that's not our fault.
I have a question. So, how many times have we asked this to go to the Planning Commission?
For me, this has been the first time, but Mr. Kohler has said it's been through several times through the departments.
So probably not from this board, I guess is what I was
Probably,
asking.
I don't know
Okay.
if any of these board members.
I guess what I'm asking is it's before this board, the previous board, maybe even before that. What were we looking for? What is a solution that we're looking for? Is there a solution? I feel like you guys, the Planning Commission, has come up with the best shot that we have. I mean, potentially, I don't know what else we could potentially do there, but what is the solution that we're looking for as a board? Or are we just saying we don't want it, we'll deal with it at BZA? What?
Looking for education. That's all they're looking for is education. We can do that in another way besides forcing.
No, I'm talking from the board level. I get what they're trying to do, but when we were asking them to come up with something.
We didn't ask them.
Who did?
I don't know. It was way before me.
It was things have been in the works in the department that we're trying to get out of our department for review.
Okay.
If the board's desire is to just leave it as it is and no permit, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure then when we're having legal matters with fences that it's because it's just, I don't know how else to educate. I think Officer Cecil has sent out notices and put it in the newsletter several times as well. So I think we've done our due diligence trying to, but we're still getting, the biggest thing is really the front yard of 3.5 feet and the good side facing outward towards your neighbor. I think those are the most complaints that we're just trying to
You can
resolve.
notify the public. You know, I kind of struggle because when I go into Damon's office, there's an ordinance book this thick. Nobody knows what's in that book. So let's keep adding to it. And that's what we do. And then, in talking to Damon, it's not like we get 20 calls a day about fences. So.
Jody knows what's in that book.
I know.
I said I
can
you know what's
recite
in
some
that
of the
book.
book. I haven't looked at it yet tonight, but I can recite some of the book. Getting older, so some of it will fade.
Well, it sounds like this board didn't ask for the Planning Commission to do it. It sounds like the previous board before us didn't also ask for them to do that, and it feels like we're pretty much.
We have a lot of ordinances that were asked years ago that
They're
they're just
getting to.
trying to work through and get.
This one, it sounds like we don't.
We have
necessarily
8 folders of the same ordinance. It's time to at least get a board to make a decision. And if you decide to leave it as it is, I can file it and be done with it and move on to the next. So I'm good with whatever the board decision is.
Leave it as
I just
it
want
is.
the public to be educated on it. And maybe having this meeting and the public watching, they'll at least know that there is requirements for a fence.
Maybe we draft something that goes on the website that says if you are considering installation of a fence on your property, it does not require a permit. However, there are rules in our zoning ordinance that apply to the installation of fences. If you are in a residential zoning district, here are the rules. If you are in an agricultural zoning district, here are the rules. Pay specific attention when considering placement of a fence in your front yard. Pay specific attention when placing your fence, because it's your responsibility to determine that it is entirely on your property. The township does not make a determination of location of boundary lines, so pay specific attention to that, because if you don't, you may end up in a boundary line dispute with your neighbor, and you want to avoid that at all costs. Pay specific attention to the placement of when you're installing a wood fence, that the good side goes out toward your neighbor. If you don't, you will be required to turn it around, and you don't want to undertake that expense. So we put that notice out to the public on our website. Maybe we put it in our newsletter periodically when we're coming up on a building season, and that achieves the same objective. And then we've attempted to educate the public, and it really helps them, because some people hear this. They hear you don't need a permit to erect a fence. So they think, unless they go to a reputable fence company who knows the rules and makes it their business to know the rules, they think that they can do what they want to do. Well, if they're called on it by their neighbors, or if a complaint is made and our ordinance enforcement division goes out, they're going to tell them, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but you can't have a 5-foot fence in the front yard setback in a residential zoning district. It can only be 3.5 feet. So if we can do some education that way, that might help the problem. Just a suggestion.
No, I'm good. motion?
Also, if we don't even vote on it, it's just dead.
Oh, we don't.
We don't even have to
And then we don't need to make a motion on the other item because we're not amending the fee schedule.
Skip that one.
Good.
That one.
D and E. Done with one. Yeah, we took care of E and C.
Michigan Township Association dues. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
So we've been getting the premium pass for the last 3 years. We have been turning down the legal defense for the last 3 years, and we've been paying the exact same amount, which would be $10,421. That's the premium pass for all the classes that we can take for free. I hope everyone's taking advantage.
Hope everyone's taking advantage of those free classes. So if no one has any questions, I'll make a motion that we approve the Michigan Townships Association, the dues in the amount of $8,521 plus the premium pass for $1,900 for a total of $10,421.
Support.
Support.
Just a quick question. The MTA, are they the ones that... The MTA, are they the ones that want us to go into this traffic study?
No.
It's not MTA, right?
No.
Okay.
That's SEMCOG.
It's SIMCOG.
SEMCOG. All right. I get them mixed up. Okay.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay.
Josh was a second. Mr.
You
Stump?
second.
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberger.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. 8G, approved professional services contract, Mannequin Smith for Carr Park. You want to come up, Matt?
Hello, Matthew Anger, Bedford Township Park Commissioner, 1163 North Park Drive, Temperance, Michigan. So, as you probably are aware, the pavilion at Carr Park is not safe. The engineers have gone out there and we've erected fence to keep people out of it. We've canceled all pavilion rentals. The 6x6 posts are basically rotted down to at most a 4x4, and the wind could potentially take it down. So we would like to have Mannequin Smith oversee the remodel of it to make it safe, and that way we can, since it's a structure, have it engineered appropriately for public use.
Any questions?
I'm assuming the account is the park fund?
Yeah, we've got money in a maintenance
Okay.
for this. So, with the structure, we think we can save it instead of tearing it down and putting a whole new one in. So,
A new one is probably double the cost.
yeah. So, they'll help give us all the specs to it, what we need to do. So. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Real quick, is there any, you're saying it's double the cost for a new one? What is do you guys have an idea of what you think it's going to be to repair it?
I'm not sure yet without the engineers what specs were. It could be anywhere between 20 to 50,000. We do have some money from the Lions Club that they volunteered 7,000 towards it. And then I would also try to seek out other private donors too to help offset some of the cost.
I can tell you that, I believe it's 3 or 4 years ago now, the Lions Club had our engineers, because we have members that are engineers, go out and look at it, and they went out and got quotes and gave it to the Park Commission. They even attended their meeting, said we'd give them $7,000. They didn't do anything, but those quotes at the time were about $21,000.
I wish we would have.
That's what I wondered, spending $10,000 on engineering to repair something as opposed to, and then is it going to cost another 10 to repair it, or more, would it be better to just
Start anew.
get for a pavilion, I don't know. I don't know the numbers
big
either.
was, what, 100?
Yeah,
It was, yeah, most of them are
Some
over,
thousand.
right around 100,000. I don't even know if that was installation, that was just the cost of the building, from what I from in my research.
That one's pretty big. It's one
It's
of
a
the
60
nicer
by
ones
30,
we have. It has
or 60 by
electric
30.
and
I
I thought you
everything.
said 20,000.
That's to fix it.
That was
To fix it. Okay. I'm like, wait.
That's to fix it.
Okay.
No, keep in mind, we already have the concrete there. We already have the electrical there, which we'll probably do a little updating on the electrical. And then, we'll talk to Manick and Smith. I don't know if we can put some type of siding on there, to make it last a lot longer than, But it is, when you walk the pavilion, it's a lot bigger than you think,
No.
when you get in there. So,
It is one of the most rented pavilions in the park because it's right next to the Carr Hall as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Carr Hall is rented all summer long, every weekend.
How long
I will
have we
say
had that?
the Lions are willing to put money towards it because they originally paid for that to be built.
For the pavilions, right?
How long have we had that? How long has it been around?
quite a while.
I'm 44 years and lived here the entire life, and it's always been
Yeah.
there.
And if you go there, you'll see the rot that's
Oh, yeah.
on those posts.
It was the old pole barn style where you just bury it in the ground, throw concrete, and it needs to be above the ground so the water doesn't rot it.
So, any other questions? Or seeing none, can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the professional services contract with Manick and Smith for Carr Park for a project fee of $9,700. And that's, the money will come from account 446-000-970-0052.
Support.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger, please take the roll.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Matt, might as well just stay up there, buddy. 8H, approve asphalt specialist LLC to complete the build for Carr Park pickleball courts. Matt?
So we've been working on this project since I've been elected, basically. And from what I understand, it was already approved before. We never got any bids for it. It was, I believe, approved last year. And we have been trying really hard to make sure we get bids for this pickleball court. The current tennis courts are falling apart. I have pictures of them. They're more stone than pavement at this point. So even if we didn't do anything, we'd still need to tear it up because it's an eyesore. You can't use it. I mean, people try to use it, but it's like playing tennis on the gravel. I even see people playing pickleball on the tennis court in the gravel. We voted on recommending asphalt specialist. They came in at the lowest bid, and according to the Manick and Smith, it met all the requirements. We asked them why they are cheaper than all the other ones by $30,000, and it was they are a pavement company. They get bulk quantity pavement. It is the same quality that the other people would use, which is tennis court pavement. And they also do excavating. So their excavating costs and their pavement costs were significantly lower than everyone else's. So that's why that's such a drastic difference in price. Everything else was pretty similar in the costs. Let's see. You guys want me to go on and tell you all the reasons why, or do you have some questions? Because I have papers here if you, I can go on and on, but I don't want to waste your time if you.
Well, I just think in terms when we take a look at pickleball, it is for kids, but it's also for middle-aged people. It's for seniors. I mean, I've got friends who are 70 years old going out and playing pickleball. They'll never play tennis again in their life, but they play pickleball. So it's universal. You got pro leagues that are going on nowadays. The thing, too, with Carr Park, we always talk about economic development. This is part of economic development because when you get people down in downtown Temperance, they might just go to Maggie's, they might go to Abe's, they might go down the street to 734. So pickleball's become more than just a game. And realistically, when you take a look around the municipalities, City of Monroe, they've built them. Whiteford built pickleball courts over at Stoneco until somebody hit them. So they're getting those fixed. So it's more than just a sport. Unlike some other things that we build a basketball court. I don't see too many 75-year-olds shooting hoops these days. So this is probably the one thing, Matt, maybe you can touch on that.
Yeah,
that is kind of universal in the age group.
It is. There's pickleball clinics for children. I mean, Community Ed has it for, I think it's fourth graders starting to learn it. I played pickleball this winter with an 82-year-old. I think it's 18 to, I have some statistics.
Did you win?
There we go.
Sometimes.
No mercy.
I don't play that much, so I'm about as good as
I got
him.
mercy. No.
The age groups 18 to 34 make up 28% of the population playing pickleball. That's a lot of the township, but it's also encompassing much older too. It's giving people exercise outdoor. The younger kids is keeping them off the screen time. It's getting, like Al said, the economic. People are going to have to drive here. They're going to stop at the gas station. They're going to get their sodas, their Powerades. They're going to stop at Food Town for the food. The ice cream store. It's.
I got a few questions though.
When I was on Park Board, I'll add to this. We sent out a survey to the residents what they wanted in the parks. And pickleball was the number one. So pickleball was overwhelmingly, the residents that returned the survey, that is what they wanted. And like back then, it did go forward, but like he said, it just didn't get bid on. So we approved this before, it just didn't get bid on. It's just coming back again.
That was kind of going to be my question, is the background of this, a little bit of the history. When did this start, right? I know we did the master plan with the parks a few years ago, but when was it approved? Like, it was last year or the year before with the parks? Like, do you remember when that happened?
Early, Todd? Early or something?
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to remember how far it goes back. And then was it just simply because we didn't get enough bids that we haven't went through?
I understand we got 0 bids.
We got no bids.
This time we got 10 bids due to some elected officials' due diligence of calling and Manikin Smith helping as well.
Well, I think I saw it on Facebook too.
Well, we put it everywhere.
It was everywhere.
Right. I mean, I was at a charity event. And I had 3 contractors come up, and it was like, hey, I heard you guys are going to build pickleball courts. Go to the website. So we had a good selection of bids.
And that's probably partly because of the popularity of it growing. It's 223% growth over the last 3 years, every year, on average.
Matt, Phil has a question.
Matt, was this project engineered or spec'd out by Manikin Smith?
Yes.
And the low bidder, I think you mentioned this, I just wanted to confirm this, the low bidder check all the box on the specs, in other words,
Every spec.
this bid, as submitted, complies with the specs or the engineering documents prepared by Manikin Smith.
Yes, they did recommend a 10% overage was the only addition that they put on it, just in case for unforeseen things. So I believe with that number it came to...
Yeah, the total 241.
The bidder?
241. No, not the Manikin Smith recommended it.
Okay, all right.
And that would come up to 241, 147.50.
All right.
And Phil, the Park Board also, too, they interviewed the 2 low bidders. They had them come to a meeting, ask them questions.
And the engineer's estimate was actually $335,869, so we're approximately $90,000 below their estimate.
Is this particular bidder constructed pickleball?
Yes,
Courts in the
multiple
past?
courts. They're in the process of building some right now as well.
Okay.
Contractors love doing this type of work because they can get in, they can get out fairly quick.
They said it would take about a month if weather was perfect to actually do the construction.
Looking at the references on here, this is actually a small project compared to some
Yes.
that they bid.
Oh, yeah.
$3 million, $2.5 million, so this is relatively small. And I like the idea, and we've already touched on it a little bit. It's in our parks, there seems to be something for everyone. We have the parks, we have the playscapes. My kids have played in White Park and Carr Park and Parmalee Park and the playscapes, and my grandkids will be playing there. But they can only play on the playscapes for so long. I have my now 20-year-old that him and his friends, they don't use the playscapes, but they have pickleball paddles, and we'll meet and go play pickleball. And I know it's growing. We have, along with basketball, tennis, we talk about things that's rarely utilized. We have 2 very nice disc golf courses, and those don't get a lot of use, but we still have them. There's something for everybody in these parks. So I like the idea of getting more, and I have reached out to numerous members in the community, and I did not hear any objections until the pickleball court, until I've received an email from Ms. Keene and here tonight from Mr. Fredericks, but it's overwhelmingly in support of this.
Is this replacing the tennis courts?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And is that the plan moving forward? All the parks, we're going to get rid of tennis courts? Are we going to keep some? Or are we going to do a hybrid version, as Mrs. Keene mentioned at one point?
I think what we're trying to do is put the pickleball courts at Carr as the majority. That way we can give back, because right now the pickleball courts are the tennis courts are being converted with portable nets. So you're losing your tennis courts because everyone's trying to play at the one court we have, or 2. We have 2 technically. So they're bringing in portable nets to do one of the tennis courts into that. So we could, with 8 courts going in here, you could give back the tennis courts, and that would give them. Plus, we already have, I believe it's 10 courts in. There's multiple courts, but the ones I know for sure, there's 8 at the school. Which, if they're not using it, you are allowed to use it as a member of the community, and then the 2 at White Park as well. And then, like Green Hills has some, Brookwood has a couple. So there's also lots of tennis courts out there.
Tell people about Green Hills Hidden Gem. No.
Real quick, Matt, can you address, it was brought up, and I do agree, this could create, because there's not a lot of parking at Carr Park. How are we going to do the parking?
My ultimate goal would be to eventually pave that lot. That would be able to create more lines. There's also road parking all the way down Temperance. That's never used. That was created.
So that people know that they can park there, though.
Yeah, and then there is, if it becomes an issue, we do have plans to potentially increase the parking out the back. There's an area in the back that could probably accommodate another 20, 30 cars with minimal, which is fencing basically.
That's something that's going to have to be looked at, because even right now, I've been over there, and it gets pretty packed depending on the weather and what's going on, especially early spring.
Right.
We're coming out.
Yep.
Yep,
I have schematics I've been working on already.
Any other questions, thoughts? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Asphalt Specialist LLC to complete the build for Carr Park pickleball courts in the amount of $241,000, $147.50. Funding for this project will come from account 447-000-970.0054 pickleball courts. Need anything else, Phil?
Support.
Who support, Joe? Joe support. Schurchberger, please take the roll.
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Schwerger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have 8I, which is the SEMCOG traffic safety study. I sent everybody information in terms of what Erie's looks like, fixes, that type of thing. I did talk to the Road Commission, Matt Snell. They historically do not provide any funds for studies. And Erie paid for their own, and their roads were also MDOT. So we could possibly extend the study. It could go from Lewis Avenue all the way, like Whiteford approved theirs, so it would go all the way to 23. Not sure how much that would be. I know it wasn't astronomical. So it's basically what I gave you in the email. So Josh was in the meeting, so if you have any questions, or Josh, if you have any comments in terms of
I think that it's worth it, the $2,500 in the long term, and it's not just I know Trudy mentioned that, that's not our road. It's the road commission's road, yes, but there are other things that we can do off of that for grant purposes, whether it's sidewalks or partnering up with the road commission on signs. And it's not just like the big projects. I know Joe had mentioned like, hey, we're not going to be around for these large projects on Stearns Road, which probably right. But there's other things. There's low-hanging fruit that they mentioned. If you look in the report, there's a lot of things that they gave Erie that said, hey, this is an easy fix. Hey, this could be a good thing to do. And so I think $2,500 is a drop in the bucket when it comes to road safety and potentially using it for grants later on down the road, with the idea of hopefully looking into, and it not being super expensive, expanding it to going all the way through the township on Stearns. I think that would make sense and something that we can look into. They did mention that the timeline of this is the 23rd, I think it was. Is there
right, that we need to.
And so we're kind of on a time crunch, which that's why I mentioned at the last meeting, like, hey, how much time do we have to figure out and get more information? I think $2,500 long-term drop in the bucket for road safety on a road a corridor that is heavily trafficked in our community probably would make sense. But I understand the opposition as well.
Any other discussion, thoughts, comments?
Did you get any calls on continuing it further, or would that be something down the road?
I'd have to call them, but they said it could be anywhere from a couple thousand to 3,000 maybe, but I'd have to get an exact number to do that.
My thoughts would be approve it now and then try and see what it would make to go how much it would be all the way through. And then maybe we can bring that back to the board and we can get that back to them. But at least getting our bid, not our bid, the approval for them at the next meeting to where we can expand off of that would be my thought.
I don't think it's a bad idea. Anything we can do to take a look at the road safety, because like Josh said, it's just not about making the road wider. There's other stuff in that report that we're going to get. The thing is, it's not a report that takes years either. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get these reports, it takes them 6 months. This doesn't take them very long. And they come in, they do it fairly quick. So, any other questions? Phil, did you have something?
I was just, Josh, you mentioned that or maybe it was you, Al, that Trudy stated, and this is very true, and Lamar stated it at the last meeting, Stearns Road is not our road. It's under the jurisdiction, control, and authority of the Monroe County Road Commission. Having said that, sadly, we live in an environment where the Road Commission is not, they're not going to do anything more than what they absolutely have to. They don't have the funding through Act 51. They've not been provided with the funding through through state revenue sharing or any other mechanism. So, proactive and looking forward to it, it's possible that this could be a favorable thing for the township, because if grants do become available, we've got the study and we can apply it. But it's really too bad that we have to do that to keep up with the roads in Bedford Township, but this board has done a very admirable job of doing that over the last 10, 15 years by having a capital improvement program to improve the roads, and without doing that, our roads would just continue to deteriorate. So, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's not our road, but that's the hand we're dealt, and so you have to decide it based on that.
Anything else?
Could we, if we prove this and then go back later, how long before we could get the next study? Is that something that we wouldn't do till next year?
Oh, you mean to try and do another one?
Well, to get the rest of what we wanted.
We could talk to them and see what, you wanted to put in something extra in this motion, so that we can get something over to them, and then I could sit there and say, hey,
That's what I'm thinking. If we want it to go further, we put something in the motion now saying, if we're willing to pay this much more,
Right.
will you include this much more in the study so we have a longer?
We really need, in my opinion, if we go from Lewis at least all the way, that to me that's worth it there. And really, we're not, that's only a couple miles more, so it shouldn't really be that bad to do that.
Well, and if we want to qualify for these grants that
Right.
are available, we need the study. I don't want to do just part of Stearns Road. I would want a grant that covered further for safety.
Yeah, I think my recollection was there's about they have money for funding for 2 projects for this round. But I think they mentioned that we could expand it, right, if we wanted to. It's just going to be an extra, I forget how much they said, maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on how far we go.
Maybe I can get some more out of SEMCOG too. You know what I mean? They get a lot of funding.
I'm not sure what motion we would make for that, or how you would word that.
Well, if this board's willing to do it, we would say we'll pay the $2,500 for the current one, plus an up to an additional so much to start from, to get it all the way to Lewis.
Yeah.
What do you think you'll need? Like up to what?
You're almost negotiating against yourself, right? And so I don't want to say $5,000 and they're going to do it for $3,000, right? So I don't know how to word that.
That's why I said up to.
And you do it for 2 and it gets you halfway past Jackman.
Right. Do we say 3,000? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, you guys talk to them, so you tell us.
Is there any time requirements? Does it have,
We need to have something to them by the 23rd for their next meeting for them to.
Yeah, their meeting's
June 23rd?
It's Monday, right?
All right. I was going to suggest that we go back to them and get them to make a commitment to us for the additional, but we're not going to meet before then, so that won't work.
I think they would probably, be okay with accepting what we're doing now, the 2,500, and then let them know, hey, we need a number.
We're interested
expanding it.
in tacking this on and bring it back to the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they're going to do the study on the 23rd, right?
It gets our spot there that, yes, okay, we've committed to the project.
Right.
And then they can go back and say, okay, we're going to need an extra X amount of dollars to expand it. But at least it gets our spot in there that we are committed.
Yeah, that we
to the
get
study
it.
and that they commit to us, and then we can work off of that. So I guess you would probably just have to make a phone call tomorrow morning.
Right.
Say, okay, hey, here's the $2,500 for up until this point, and then we're looking to go further. How much is that going to be?
Right to Lewis.
How would we come back to do that at the next board meeting?
Yeah. Because they're not going to start that study tomorrow. You know what I mean? So.
No, but we have to give them an answer. You said by the 23rd if we want.
Well, for this part.
Would they include the other part with this? Is what I'm asking.
I don't know, Josh. I think they probably would if we, they could probably get back to us a price. I mean, worst case scenario, you'd have to have a quick special meeting.
Yeah, because they don't have a price right now, even though they don't.
Right, they got to get it quoted.
They have to figure it out.
Could we, I'm asking you, we that agree that this board would be willing to spend up to, not approving it, just that we agree that we would be willing to spend up to, and then you could say yes if it's in that range, and then we would approve it at the next meeting, something like that.
How about, Josh raised a valid point, I don't want to bid against ourselves. So if we set the standard, they're going to eat that up. So how about you communicate to them that the board, and there'll have to be a motion, and it'll have to be publicly voted on, that the board has approved the $2,500 within the parameters established in the request to us. However, in order for this study to be meaningful, the Bedford Township and its residents, we want it to go from Lewis Avenue west to US 23, because Whiteford's paid for their portion of that. So I hate to say approve it up to a certain amount when we don't know what they're going to come back to with us. So maybe if you're inclined to do it, maybe approve it tonight for the distance that they've quoted to us. Make it known to them. That's not the end of it. We need a quote from you, and we want the entire study done. We need a quote from you so we can take it back to the board to determine whether they want to pay for that additional length of roadway all the way to Lewis Avenue. That makes sense. I think you almost have to approve it tonight for what's on the table tonight, but then communicate to them. That's not the end of it for us. We want you to give us a deal to do the entire study at one time so we don't have to piecemeal it.
Yeah.
Todd, you
I'd even say, see, going as far as telegraph.
see what? I could tell them, give me two options.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
So my opposition to this is, from day one, is we all know that Stearns Road is a problem. No question about it. It's overburdened. Minimum that would need is a third lane that, you know, I'm just saying out there, a turn lane all the way down. But whether we do this study or not, and I'm still a hard no, the study is going to be pointless because we're not going to go out for any grants. Nobody's going to go out for any grants. Nothing's going to be done on Stearns Road for a number of years. And then they're going to have to do a new study, you know, in 5, 7, 8, 9 years. If we decide to go for a grant, there'll have to be another study done. So to me, it's just not, I'm not for it. And so that's my 2 cents.
Opinions respected.
I can understand where it's coming from. I think the grant lasts longer, not the grant, the study. I asked them, and they said it lasts quite a long time. I think for the larger projects, yeah, it may be longer to where we might need another study 5, 10 years down the road. But I think, like I said, there's low-hanging fruit that we could potentially act on with grants and partnering with the.
Oh, this is probably something, too. We need to sit down with Will Bruck after we get our study and say, hey, what can you do for us?
Well, so expanding Secor Road, right? That whole thing that happened 2017, 2018,
right?
A long time ago.
Been in the
Still
works
hasn't
for a while.
happened.
Still nothing.
Still hasn't happened, but that's how things work at the state level. Don't get me started. But I think, again, that was a partnership with the Road Commission and grants and things of that nature to expand that, and I think the same thing can happen here. But, yeah, I think we're beating a dead horse at this point. Just make a motion and yes or no and go from there.
Any other discussion? Okay. I need a motion.
What would the motion be? So,
you're going to make it?
We're going to make I'll make a motion to approve the traffic safety study with SEMCOG for a price of $2,500 from, where does it go? Where would it be starting from? Our portion? From White?
Well, they're from Douglas.
From Douglas to Adler. How would we word the next part? Or we just leave it at that and we communicate with them?
We just leave it at that, right?
I think you have to leave it at that, and then if the board wants to give direction to you and Al to immediately contact SEMCOG, their representatives, to give us a quote for an additional portion from Douglas East to Lewis and from Douglas East to Telegraph, as suggested by Todd. Give us 2 quotes, see what that would entail, and then bring it back at the next meeting. But with this motion, if it passes, you have a placeholder from Douglas to Adler.
Yeah. All right. That's my motion.
Second?
Support.
Got support. Ms. Hirschberger, take the roll.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
No.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Ms. Schreier votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes for each individual. Please state your name and address, please.
Karen Flynn, Temperance. Go ahead.
Pamela has Temperance.
First of all, thanks for the pickleball courts. That's really nice. I have some comments, and my friend Pam will finish them if...
Excuse me, can you get a little closer to the mic?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there you
If
go.
I go over your time limit, okay? Hang on, waiting for my phone to switch here. Come on. There we go. All right. Many Bedford citizens were hoping, and indeed the newly elected 2025 Township Board pledged, that we could expect that our new township government would move in a less contentious, more welcoming, and productive direction. In keeping with that goal, I think that we can congratulate our community on the well-attended and peaceful exercise of our democratic voices on June 14th at the Bedford Government Center. I wish that the members of the Township Board could be similarly praised, but the words spoken on June 3rd during board member comment time upon announcement of the upcoming June 14th event were counterproductive and a step backwards into antagonism. This is a transcript from the comments for context. Mr. Pryor, I'm going to head this off real quick because we're probably going to get calls and so on. There's going to be a protest here on June 14th, which is Flag Day. It's by a group called the Invisible Group. They're going to protest Donald Trump. We're calling the sheriff department. We've checked with Phil and so on. Mr. Bruning laughs in the background. They are allowed to protest on the front grassy part. They can't do it in the parking lot. Mr. Pryor chuckles. But that's where they can't do it. It's going to be from 11 to 12:30. It just so happens to be on Flag Day. Mr. Bruning, send them down to my shop. Unknown trustee. I was going to say...
Excuse me, your time.
That's one time.
Unknown trustee. I was going to say, why aren't they down at the shop? Mr. Bruning continues. I'll turn it into a freaking party. I'll have 4 different militias there. It will be a party again. Mr. Pryor. So if you people get calls or people start calling you or they see something, that's who the group is. So, Mr. Gore, I would suggest we let them have their say for an hour and a half and then they'll go away. Mr. Pryor. Exactly. Mr. Bruning. Yeah, no need to show up, just ignore them. The board's comments were unnecessarily and counterproductively confrontational. Instead of welcoming or even just tolerating citizens' protected free rights of expression, the board set the stage for the event with disrespect and mockery. It was implied that attendees would somehow be disrespecting Flag Day. Mr. Bruning's comments were decidedly contemptuous of attendees and threatening. His party at the shop again comment referenced a previous protest met with his presumably militia friends on the roof of his gun shop armed with weapons. Mr. Bruning's comments went unchecked on June 3rd. Abhorrent statements made at a board meeting by a board trustee about summoning militias against attendees on a June 14th rally were an abuse of his power as a public official. They are dangerous and incendiary. The group on June 14th was not invisible. We were 120 plus citizens who are concerned about the direction our country is moving in. Many people driving by expressed supports with honks and thumbs up. The people in attendance are not going away. We live here. We're your neighbors, albeit perhaps with a different viewpoint than yours. We are teachers, engineers, school board members, veterans, nurses.
Over in 1 minute, just half a second.
Nurses, pastors, social workers, nuns. We're Democrats, Republicans, independents. We are happy the event went well. We are not a threat. We are not your enemy. We care about our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Deneen Cole. I'm here tonight to speak directly to Trustee Bruning regarding the recent threatening comments made toward the No Kings protesters. Mr. Bruning, as a public official, your words carry real weight. When you use your platform to threaten or demean residents or their political views, it's not just inappropriate, it's dangerous. We're living in a time of increasing political violence. Just recently, 2 people were murdered in Minnesota because of their political beliefs as Democrats. That's not a rumor, it's reality. We should all be deeply disturbed by that. And when someone in a position of power adds fuel to that fire with aggressive rhetoric, it creates an atmosphere where people may feel unsafe simply for expressing their views. This isn't about political parties, it's about public responsibility. It's about the expectation that our elected officials represent everyone in the community, not just those that they agree with. Peaceful protest is not only protected by the Constitution, it is a core part of American democracy. Mr. Bruning, I urge you to recognize the gravity of your words. I ask that you issue a public apology and recommit yourself to serving with respect, impartiality, and the kind of leadership that helps protect, not endanger, the people of this township. Thank you.
Jacqueline Arvanitis, where do I live? Temperance. I'm here today on behalf of Bedford Indivisible, a group of concerned citizens who care deeply about this community and our shared democratic values. First, let me address a disturbing comment made by Todd Bruning at the last meeting. In response to the announcement that our group was organizing a protest in the community, Mr. Bruning made a comment suggesting that he would bring in, quote, 4 different militias and laughed it off. This is not a joke. Armed militias are a serious concern and Michigan law is clear. Private militias are illegal. We reject the idea that threatening our peaceful protests with unlawful armed presence is humorous. Laughing this off, as Mr. Pryor did, is irresponsible and shameful. You discussed the need for higher security measures for this very building for yourselves. Does safety only matter when it applies to you personally? These comments are especially disturbing in light of the recent shootings involving 2 Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses, which resulted in the murder of a lawmaker and her spouse. The shootings occurred on the very morning of our protest, and many of us arrived carrying the weight of that horrifying news or learning of it for the first time at the protest. Political violence has no place in our country, and as leaders, it is incumbent upon you to take it seriously and denounce it in the strongest form. While you may interpret it as a joke or unserious comment, that type of rhetoric can lead to real-world violence. Second, I would expect that this board stands by the First Amendment. The right to peacefully assemble and speak freely is fundamental. Disparaging our group for exercising those rights shows a disturbing intolerance for voices you don't agree with. That's not leadership. Our protest was peacefully organized. We worked with the Sheriff's Department to ensure full compliance with local regulations. Our members were instructed to remain peaceful and stay on the grass, and that's exactly what we did. Finally, let me be absolutely clear. We are a part of this community. The notion that we'll simply go away if ignored as suggested is insulting and speaks volumes about who you are and what you think of the people you are elected to serve. We are not going anywhere. We live here, we vote here, and we care deeply about what happens here. This community is bound by more than geography. We share values, we know the difference between right and wrong, and we take pride in our community and our country. We will continue to speak out when our rights or our neighbors are disrespected or disregarded. We will continue to demand accountability, not as a provocation, but as a promise grounded in the Constitution of the United States.
Any other comments?
Lamar Frederick, Lambertville. While I was sitting back there, I heard something that gave me a little heartburn. I'm sure it did Phil. Do not ever make a decision based on whether or not you will be sued. If you sit here long enough, you will be sued because of the decision you make. You are required to make decisions based upon the health, safety, and welfare of the community and on the facts and circumstances as well as the expert reports which are in front of you. You make that decision and you think it's the right one to make. You aren't here for the purposes of appeasing the petitioner. You're here to make decisions. I'm going to tell you, when I was on the board, we got sued several times. There will be another hearing. The next level up, if you get sued, will make a decision. And they may support you, or they may say, "Oop, that was wrong." Just move forward. Don't worry about getting sued. Make a decision. Thank you.
Gail Kane, Temperance. Okay, glad you voted 8B down because Prairie Woods still has 3 plats to be done. Which brings us to the whole issue. If you're going to keep increasing the number of people, you need to have the rules or the ordinances, just the way it is. And if not, in order to keep some sort of democracy, throw the books all out and just have a free-for-all, because that's what you basically just did tonight. It's not against pickleball. That's not the point. The point was to get them divided with 4 at White and 4 at Temperance. Carr Park cannot handle all that they want to do. And remember, this money's coming from general fund. Maybe the people with pickleball, which I'm hoping they charge for the courts to be rented out, because if there's that many people, there's going to be disputes over who gets to use it. So it's not a matter of being anti-pickleball, and that's what needs to be cleared up. Board members, we all know you all have private agendas. Despite with the people who were here over on Flag Day, you too have a right to your personal opinions and your voice. So keep up the good job. You're doing discussion, which is far greater than anything else. We all have private opinions about each and every one of you and each and every one of our neighbors. And that's why you have ordinances, to avoid the conflict between neighbors. Put the rules down, then everybody's on even ground. Thanks.
Any further comments? Seeing none, Mr. Stump?
Yeah, a few things. I do want to give credit to the group that was protesting on Saturday. You know, whether I agree or disagree with you, I fully support the First Amendment. I think it's incredibly important for our country, and so the group, from what I see on Facebook, was protesting peacefully, wasn't in the roadway, wasn't rioting, wasn't burning things down, and I wouldn't expect anything less from our community, right? I think that it was handled the right way. You guys peacefully protested, exercised your First Amendment right, and so for that I give credit. I do think that this board denounces political violence in all aspects. I don't think what happened in Minnesota helps at all. I do think we need to dial down the political rhetoric and the things of political violence that has no room in our community, in our state, and in our country. One side note, and then getting into something a little more serious, well, not more serious, as serious as that, what's the process for us to make a request to planning? Is it simply, hey, we want you to take a look at this ordinance, or is it something the board has to formally vote on to take a look at? How does that work?
The board has to formally request the Planning Commission to look at something.
Okay. So then it was like, hey, I'm going to add an agenda item. I'd like this to be voted on, and then the board says yes or no, and then it goes to planning. Okay. All right. And last thing for me, and then I'm wrapping it up. My prayers go out to the family and friends that have been dealing with the tragic situation that happened last week here in our community. Just truly a tragic event with losing a 2025 Bedford graduate student. Gwen Smith, there's a GoFundMe out there on Facebook. If you guys could share and donate to that GoFundMe and help out with the family and everything that they're going through with right now, would be appreciated. So my thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of Gwen Smith and that tragic situation that happened in our community. And that's all I have.
Mr. Bruni?
Everybody have a good night, good weekend, and I'm going to shock everyone in this room, in the audience, and at home. I would like to commend the organizers and the protesters of that protest on Saturday. That is exactly how a protest is supposed to be. No property damage, no detours. Al didn't have to call the SWAT team. I didn't have to call my guys. 100% I would support. Oh, maybe not. But anyways, I'm supporting you guys. That was 100%.
It's his comment time.
Protest. I will support that anytime that you want to do it. So kudos to you guys, your organizers, and that protest on Saturday.
Mr. Carr?
No, everybody have a great week. Thank you for the great discussion tonight on all the stuff. I mean, there was a lot of stuff we got accomplished. We haven't had a meeting like this in quite a while. This is definitely this board is moving in the right direction. There's not a lot of animosity. There's a lot of teamwork. There's a lot of communication, far more than previous. Thinking about everybody else enjoy the summer. I'll touch on this a little bit. I don't know a lot, but we have had a rash throughout the county, and Chief Deputy can attest to this, of some serious fatal traffic crashes. So while you're out on the roads, please be cognizant of what you're doing, your surroundings, drive safely. If you're traveling over any of the holidays, please drive safely, and everybody just continue to have a good summer.
Mr. Montry.
Yeah, great meeting. Appreciate a 6-1 vote always. And appreciate. Hey, I do. I think I've got the record for most of being the ones. I would echo the prayers to Gwen Smith's family in that tragedy, and friends and family and all that. I would also like to. I would be remiss, and I was with this agenda that we had today. I wanted to commend and compliment Jody Rector. I've been on that board for 6 months, and every meeting am continually more impressed with her and her preparedness and professionalness. And she doesn't run the meeting, but how she operates in meetings, we have a great planner. And I wanted to sing her praises for a second. That's all I got.
Jennifer.
Everyone's favorite topic, taxes. We're in the process of printing the 2025 summer tax bills. They will be mailed out July 1st. If you sold your home or no longer have an escrow, please contact my office and we'll make sure your bills get sent to you. If you have any questions about your tax bills, just give me a call. And everybody have a great night and weekend.
Hirschberger.
Just want to remind everyone that the Township Hall will be closed Thursday, June 19th for Juneteenth, federal holiday. That's all I have.
Great. Greg, I share those sentiments about Jody. I've watched her now for the last several years, and she keeps progressing in terms of what we're doing. Thank the Planning Commission. It's always a tough job. Same way with BZA. So that's why we have a cross-section of citizens that help with these decisions. As for the park board, let's just make it real clear. I don't run the park board. He does. He does. And several others. But what we have done is we've come together to get things done. And we're not looking at who's doing this for credit or who's doing that. We're like coming together between the maintenance department, between Matt, Josh, Andrew, and we're like, okay, let's get some things done. And I want to thank this board because we've gotten some things like fencing. We're getting a pickleball court. Okay, Pat Thatcher, kudos to him. He found a place that's sandblasting our picnic tables for $200 instead of paying $1,100 for a new picnic table. So board and so on, we've just come together, and I have Chase the deputy helping out so that Josh or Matt, and I think you guys can attest, if you call us, we're there to help you. I'm not there to run another committee or another board or whatever. So they've been doing a pretty good job. As for the protests, I just want to make it known when I called the sheriff's department, it was to protect the protesters in terms to let them know so that we wouldn't have what's gone on in some of the other parts of the country. And I think Joe can say we called, said, hey, this is what's going on, and, it's for your safety in terms when these things happen. So the thing, too, I'd like to wish I know you two don't want to hear this, happy birthday to the Army. They've been around for 250 years, I know, Joe. So, and when we talk about protest, I was brought up, my dad was a World War II veteran. He was gone for 3 years. And he fought for this country so that we could all speak. and so did a lot of others. So, you know, you can, that's, anytime somebody wants to protest, I will tell them, just call us, let us know, so we know what's going on. So, other than that, everybody have a great night, have a good weekend, and we'll go.
Hey, do we have a meeting before the 4th of July or no?
Yes, we do.
We have one? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so don't take vacation, Josh.
Motion to adjourn.